India's focus on the global south. Now, this is what the Times of India had taken up. Now, what the Times of India, in fact, interestingly says is this. It says that a joint partnership is what they are looking at, and Prime Minister Modi and Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi signed a landmark strategic partnership agreement following their decision earlier this year to elevate ties, and after a bilateral meeting that saw discussions on G20 cooperation, food and energy security, climate change, and the need for a concerted efforts to the global south to deal with such issues. Egypt's highest civilian order, which is another part of the story, is that the Egypt's highest civilian order of the Nile was conferred on Modi by Sisi, making him the first Indian to receive the award. Now, that is the most interesting part of it, because this is considered to be the 13th such highest civilian award that the Prime Minister has been honored with, and Egypt being one of the latest countries to honor the Prime Minister with its most important civilian award, which is the Order of the Nile. And of course, when it comes to Egypt, there is a very interesting history between India and Egypt. India and Egypt have been strategic partnership for quite some time. And just as the countries had become independent from what Egypt was under the British mandate, and then from the French mandate, and so many other nations that had been part of its working, and then finally it takes its independence from the British. And then what happens is that when it comes to the non-alignment movement or on several of the global issues, we did see that Egypt, and when it comes to India, their issues have always aligned. And similarly, this kind of alignment that is being carried out when it comes to Egypt. And it is a very interesting picture also that is ever just small, but of course very interesting enough when we have this picture coming in when it comes to the strategic relations with Egypt. So clearly there's been a big kind of an approach that has been given when it comes to Egypt, and the fact that India is still focused on her older allies and partners as well. It is not that after years together, India has moved on when its newfound status. We still seem to be quite rooted when it comes to Africa, Egypt, and the Middle East, and this is just an explanation of it. Well, just after that, well, let's see what's there in the Hindustan Times right now. And in the Hindustan Times, has also covered this particular aspect about the new relationship, and a very interesting picture that is also there when it comes to the Hindustan Times, and that is when it is about Prime Minister Modi next to one of the world famous sites that we in fact see, that is he is standing next to the pyramids of Giza, and it is a sign to behold. A very interesting picture of the Prime Minister that actually shows the location of the place. And over here we in fact says that the title goes that Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt, and of course taking a tour of that site. Modi meets Egypt's Sisi to deepen bilateral ties, and this is again everyone talking about, especially in a tweet. Prime Minister Modi had described his talks with Sisi as excellent and said that the two leaders reviewed the full range of bilateral relations and agreed to further augment economic and cultural linkages. A spokesman for the Egyptian president said that the two leaders confirmed their mutual commitment to push relations to broader horizons and across various fields. So Egypt is a country with which we have been having a deepened commitment, especially when it comes to the Middle East. But there is another interesting factor. India has been also trying to increase its weapons exports, and Egypt has been a very interesting country when it comes to its exports, because there has been interest that has been shown by Egypt when it comes to our fighter aircrafts that have been manufactured, and that is something that has been a driving point as well. So probably Egypt in the future, which is also having a very similar kind of an aircraft inventory when it comes to India, is looking at replacing its MiG-21 aircraft, and also to overhaul some of its older MiG-29 aircraft, in which of course India has a lot of experience. So in that way we are in fact looking at this relationship going on a huge level, where we are talking about it becoming much more deeper and probably also having that component of defense exports. Meanwhile, another interesting fact is that food and grains is something that we have been importing from Egypt, and also we have a bilateral relationship with them on agricultural trade as well, which has benefited both the countries, and that is also being highlighted. Well, joining me in the morning schedule is my colleague Pankaj. Pankaj, I mean, we can see how this relationship with Egypt has been deepening as of now, and the Prime Minister has been given the honor with the Order of the Nile, 13th such international honor coming with regards to a civilian award that has been given to the Prime Minister. How do you see the deepening of these relationships?
Well, yes, Varghese, this is an addition to the already garlanded cap of our Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And when it comes to the Order of Nile, which is considered to be the biggest civilian award in Egypt, we have to actually look at it both from the current and the historic point of view. When during our independence, the non-aligned movement that happened. So apart from Jawaharlal Nehru, there were other Kenyan and Egyptian and other heads of state who had signed pact for non-aligned movement, and Egypt too had played a bigger role there. And having said that, the historic ties that India and Egypt enjoy, it needs no mention. And the person on the screen, along with Prime Minister Modi, Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. We had seen him not very long ago in a very different setup here in India as guest of honor for the 26th of January Republic Day celebrations. And that was the time when the invitation to Prime Minister to visit Egypt was extended, and Prime Minister Modi had accepted it. And now with the bilateral deals, bilateral talks, and a very significant partner in the link to the West Asia. Egypt actually plays a very crucial role. And we have seen the winds of change sweeping across Egypt. It is still being said that Egypt, Varghese, surprisingly, is one of the rarest places from where you will see people of our profession standing and giving you live reportage from the country Egypt. Cairo, there is a place, it's a center basically, it's like a roundabout, which is dedicated for the media activities. And I have also spent some time briefly in the capital and had the rare honor of actually visiting the Pyramid of Giza. And this whole scenario, if you would look at it from a journalistic point of view, then it looks surreal because, again, the kind of ties that we have now, the new Egypt that we have, uh, in function as of now, is all about, embracing the changes, yet being deep rooted with their own traditions and customs. And that is what separates Egypt. Remember, Egypt also happens to be, if not the cradle of the humankind, but the development of civilization, the development of the lifespan, the life cycles, the way humanity evolved across, as I say, starting from South Africa, the lowest tip of the African continent, where the first human was found. From there on, the movement started northwards, and Egypt, obviously coming out of the African continent, is also a significant player when it comes to the development of civilization. So the connect that India has from this side, we talk about being the oldest democracy and the biggest democracy to the oldest civilization that we have in the world, known in the world as India. Egypt too, at that time, had a bigger role to play. And for Prime Minister Modi to be so benevolent and to accept the award with humility is something that only deepens the ties. And as far as the newspapers are concerned, you have taken us through with all the newspapers, but three basically newspaper headlines deal only with Egypt, India and Egypt signed pact on strategic partnership as Modi LCC CC hold talks. Then we have the Times of India. Again, we have the picture here of Prime Minister Modi and LCC. That's also there. And needless to say, the Hindi newspapers too have given prominence. Egypt में Prime Minister को सबसे बड़ा सम्मान, साझेदारी भी मजबूत. This is what Nav Bharat Times has to say. So in all this aspect, you would know that even if it was a Sunday that many journalists had actually chosen to take some rest because of the long schedule of the Prime Minister from the United States visit. But this time around, Egypt too equally important, and most of the media outlets, both print and electronic, gave equal prominence and coverage to Prime Minister Modi's visit to Egypt, although he is returning home. But this particular aspect was sure to be,
Pankaj,
highlighted.
I've just got a small version from the Tribune, in fact. And then the Tribune, interestingly enough, what they explain what is the Order of the Nile, the civilian award that was given to the Prime Minister. I'm just reading a few of what it meant. It says that the honor is confirmed. The honor is conferred upon heads of states who offer Egypt or the humanity their invaluable services. The honor indicates the warmth of government and the people of Egypt have towards India, is what Prime Minister Modi has tweeted after it. So it is something that is given to very special friends of Egypt, and Egypt has been, as you said rightly, that it has been a very close partner with India. It's got a historic aspect as well. But one more thing that noticed my attention was that this is what it said. The Bora community, especially who have been in Egypt, well, the Prime Minister was very happy to, in fact, meet them, the Bora Muslim community. And some of them, this is their reaction that came in. I'm just reading a small part of that reaction. I have been living in Egypt for the last 27 years and belong to the Bora community. Meeting Prime Minister Modi came as a unique experience. He is closely associated with our community. I feel proud that our Prime Minister came all the way here to meet us, the member of the Indian diaspora. So wherever we go, whether it was United States or whether it's Egypt, we have the diaspora of this country being a big strength to us, and that is probably reflected in what a member from the Bora community is said. This is there in the Hindustan Times. They have quoted him, isn't it?
Well, this goes without any saying, Varghese, because as far as the diaspora is concerned, we have seen the complete display of their power, of their soft approach that they have living in a particular country, be it starting not just with Prime Minister's visit to the United States, but even before that, if you remember, it was Fiji and uh, other smaller countries where the Prime Minister was touring before that, where we saw one of the Prime Ministers of a country actually touching Prime Minister Modi's feet. So that is in recognition of the role that is being played by the expats, the diaspora in that particular country. Fiji, now, why I would mention that, because during the Hindi Day celebrations, Fiji had put up a very, I would say, commendable performances and coverage of the whole Hindi Day celebration. Fiji, remember, as far as the numbers are concerned, Varghese, then it happens to be the first country where there are maximum number of Indians outside India. Earlier, I was corrected because I thought it was Durban in South Africa, but if that's not the case, Fiji has more Indians outside India. Then it comes Durban. Then we have other parts of the world also where the Indian community is in a sizable population. So we cannot actually overlook the role that is being played by the expats, and that is the recognition that why when a head of a state travels to a particular country where you have the Indian expat community doing so well, So organically, the kind of reception that you get, the kind of coverage that you get, the kind of warmth that you see, all those things come into picture. And that way, the power of a country, if I may use that word, because there is no need to flex muscle when I refer to power. It's not about the military strength or some sort of upper hand that we are speaking here. It's the kind of acceptance, and to break it down, Verghese, to our very informed audience, I would tell you that the success of any country or the role of the expats in any country outside India, if I'm talking about the Indian community, is reflective of the number of Indian restaurants you would find in a bigger city, like for that matter, Istanbul in Turkey, like Johannesburg, Pretoria, Cape Town, Durban in South Africa, like Cairo in Egypt. Like there are so many. I mean, United States. Obviously, we know we saw the data, we saw the statistics, and we saw the fanfare with which the Indian community welcomed Prime Minister Modi. So there is no need to mention that the kind of cuisine culture that is developed within a particular country, especially in the US, that needs no mention. But that is reflective. And trust me, when we talk about the India Connect, I was surprised to see, although a handful, but yes, indeed, there were Indian restaurants like Taj restaurant. Most of them are called Taj or the Indian Delight or the Indian cuisine, like that. And in Istanbul too, which has roughly, I guess, not more than 300 to 400 families of Indian descent there, if it has gone up from 2015, 2016 now. So that too speaks volumes that how the Indian community has proliferated from India and has moved on to different places. And Egypt being one of the significant places once again, because again, remember Egypt, Qatar, Doha, all these places which are actually a gateway to West Asia towards Kuwait and Iraq and other Western countries. This particular country too has a sizable number of Indian population. And the Bohra community, as you were mentioning, Varghese, yes, we have seen the outreach earlier as well, as far as the Bohra community is concerned. And obviously, the definition and the way people would understand it, the a normal Google search would tell you that, like all Indian Muslims, the Bohra have a syncretized culture characterized by influence of Arab world as much as it is inherited from their origins in India, their ancestral land where Hinduism is dominant. This is what Google would tell you if you type about Bohra community. So this is one particular aspect where the outreach
Right.
of this particular government has been significant.